24th of September, 2010, Las Vegas. A man walks into the Bellagio. He's dressed simple. No watch, no entourage. He doesn't speak to anyone. He walks straight to the cashier's cage and hands over a stack of $1,000 chips. The cashier scans them under UV light. They pass. She counts them, $20,000 in total, and hands him cash. Security doesn't flag it. No alarms or red lights. The entire transaction lasts under a minute. But there's a problem. Those chips were never issued by the Bellagio. They were never counted in, never tracked out. They didn't come from the vault. They came from a two-car garage in a quiet neighborhood just outside the city. And they were made by a man with no criminal record, no history of deception, and no real plan for what came next. His name was Erik Morikawa. And over the next 8 months, he and his partner would pull off one of the most precise and undetectable counterfeiting operations in modern casino history, without hacking a single system, or ever stepping foot behind a security door. This is the story of the man who printed his own casino fortune, and the one mistake that brought everything down.
It wasn't that easy, but once it came to us and we figured out a way, it came fast.
Erik Morikawa wasn't a criminal. He wasn't rich either. He owned a small repair business, just a guy with a van and some tools. But Vegas was growing, and that meant jobs. By 2002, Erik's company had taken off. There were so many casino renovation projects, he started hiring extra help. One of them was a man named Jeremy, skilled, fast, and always available. He also had a criminal record, mostly forgery. But Erik looked past it. From 2000 to 2004, business was good. Jeremy turned out to be reliable. Together, they built a team. The work kept coming. But in 2004, the calls stopped. Vegas was changing. The casino jobs vanished, and Erik was running out of options. He took whatever jobs he could find, suburbs, strip malls, small fixes just to keep his workers busy. But it wasn't enough. Every day, the numbers got worse. Layoffs were coming. One night, driving back from a site, Erik saw a billboard. It showed a massive golden casino chip. He stared at it and asked the question that would change everything. Could you fake one of those? Jeremy didn't hesitate. He said yes. In that moment, a new plan started to form. Not to rob a casino, not to count cards, but to create chips so real they couldn't be told apart. They knew the risks, but the system that once paid them had pushed them out. Now, they were going to beat it. They wouldn't use guns. They'd use tool, paint, and a printer. And with that, Erik Morikawa and Jeremy began planning the most daring scam Vegas had ever seen. After deciding to take the risk, the first step for Morikawa and his team was reconnaissance. They went to the casino, not to gamble, but to collect the foundation of their plan: casino chips. Chips that most gamblers treated casually were now the centerpiece of something far more serious. Back in Morikawa's garage, once a place for drills and lumber, everything changed. It became a lab, a testing ground. They dissected each chip, analyzing the material, the weight, the texture, and even the sound they made when clinking together. The chips, they discovered, weren't simple plastic. They were made from a dense blend of clay and sand, compressed under extreme pressure to give them their distinct feel. Driven by determination, they tried to recreate the process. They sourced similar materials, built makeshift presses, and tried to mold their own version of the casino's currency. But it didn't work. Their chips felt cheap. The weight was off, and the surface lacked that subtle resistance of the real thing. What they didn't expect was just how advanced these chips really were. The manufacturing process didn't just involve pressure. It required high temperatures and machinery they had no access to. And that wasn't the only problem. Even if they could replicate the feel, it had to look perfect. One flaw, one slightly off-color tone, and a pit boss would spot the fake immediately. They weren't just forging an object, they were forging something meant to survive under constant surveillance. After weeks of effort, the garage looked more like a graveyard. Failed chips were everywhere. No matter how many techniques they tried, the weight stayed off, the sound didn't match, and the color tones were inconsistent, and morale started to collapse. The team, once energized by the promise of easy money, began to lose confidence. They knew the risks. If they got caught with fakes, this wouldn't just be the end of the project, it could ruin their lives. One by one, they all walked away, until only Morikawa and Jeremy were left, surrounded by failed prototypes and the fading hope that this would ever work. Morikawa's spirit wasn't easily broken. Driven by desperation and a refusal to fail, he kept thinking, and eventually something clicked. Why waste time building fake chips from scratch when they could just modify the real ones? He pitched the idea to Jeremy. Instead of creating new chips, they'd take low-value ones like $1 chips and transform them into $100 chips. The brilliance of the plan was in its simplicity. All casino chips, no matter the value, were the same size, weight, and shape. The only difference was color and markings. To test the theory, Morikawa laid out chips of different values side by side. They matched. Physically, they were identical. It was the breakthrough they needed. Suddenly, everything changed. The garage was alive again. The same place that had become a graveyard for failure now buzzed with new energy. They got to work fast. But the next obstacle was just as critical: the color. The difference between a $1 chip and a $100 chip wasn't subtle. One wrong shade could blow the whole operation. Morikawa turned the garage into an improvised paint lab. Dyes, pigments, color wheels, every surface was covered. Mixing, testing, scraping, starting over. This is where Jeremy's past came in handy. With his background in forgery, he knew how to replicate textures and hues. He and Morikawa spent hours every day trying to get it right. Eventually, after countless failed samples, they nailed it. The color matched. The texture was spot on. But one detail remained: the sticker. Compared to what they'd already been through, this part was almost easy. Jeremy softened the adhesive on the original $1 chips by boiling them. Then, he peeled the stickers off cleanly, scanned them, and digitally edited the $1 to say $100. After printing new labels, he applied them carefully. The result? Perfect replicas. But Morikawa was cautious. Something still felt off. He suspected the casinos might be using hidden security features, something invisible to the eye. So, he tested the chips under a blacklight. And sure enough, there it was. A faint, luminescent mark on every genuine chip. A final layer of protection. Morikawa found a specialty pen that could replicate the same effect. One by one, he marked the counterfeit chips, carefully mimicking the glow under UV light. Now, the chips weren't just good, they were indistinguishable from the real thing. After months of trial, failure, and refinement, they had finally done it. Each $1 chip they altered now looked, felt, and scanned as a $100 chip. For every dollar they spent, they made 99 in profit. Now came the hardest part: testing it. Morikawa, despite being the mastermind, didn't want to risk going in. He was too cautious. So Jeremy volunteered. He walked into Green Valley Ranch Casino with just 3 altered chips in his pocket. 3 $1 chips now disguised as 100s. He approached the cashier, calm but tense, handed over the chips, and waited. The cashier took them, looked once, counted, then handed Jeremy $300. That was it. No alarms, no questions. Jeremy walked out and got into the car. Morikawa was waiting. They said nothing at first. Then Jeremy looked over and nodded. It had worked. The operation was now real. From that day on, the garage became a mint. They produced 20 to 30 chips daily, each one altered by hand, each one worth $100. But they knew they couldn't just walk into a casino and keep cashing out. It would raise suspicions. So they switched tactics. Sometimes they'd play a few hands, mixing real chips with fake ones. Other times, they'd stay for hours. They created patterns, routines, anything to look like regular gamblers. The strategy worked. The fakes were undetectable. The profits kept climbing. Morikawa and Jeremy's operation evolved into a well-oiled machine. Their strategy was calculated and cunning. Using the profits from their initial successes, they would buy real casino chips of various denominations, blending into the crowd of regular gamblers. This initial step was crucial. It established them as legitimate players in the eyes of the casino. Once they had the real chips, they'd discreetly head to the bathroom, a place away from the prying eyes of security cameras and personnel. Here, in the privacy of a stall, they would execute a swift switch, replacing the real chips with their counterfeit versions. This subtle exchange was the linchpin of their strategy, allowing them to introduce their fake chips into play without raising suspicion. Back at the gaming tables, they played with a mix of real and counterfeit chips. To any onlooker, or even the watchful cameras above, everything appeared normal. They weren't just playing the games, they were playing the casino itself. In the event of an investigation, the footage would show them buying chips with real money, a perfect cover for their illicit activities. This routine became their daily ritual. Each day, they meticulously crafted 20 to 30 counterfeit chips, slowly escalating the denominations from $100 to $500, then $1,000, and eventually even $25,000 chips. With each higher denomination, their profits skyrocketed, reaching over $600,000 a month. This newfound wealth brought about a drastic change in their lifestyle. Morikawa, in particular, began to indulge in extravagances he had never before imagined. He and his wife spent lavishly, dining at the finest restaurants and dressing in the most luxurious clothes. In one instance, his wife's penchant for opulence was on full display when she purchased 100 high-end handbags in a single extravagant spree, costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. As their wealth grew, so did their confidence and their recklessness. The humble beginnings in a garage seemed like a distant memory, replaced by a life of glamour and excess. But in Las Vegas, where fortunes are made and lost in the blink of an eye, every risk, no matter how calculated, carries consequences. Jeremy, who struggled with addiction and a tendency for trouble, found himself overwhelmed by the sudden influx of wealth. His indulgences in drugs and alcohol exacerbated his lack of discretion. In a reckless move, he revealed the details of their operation to a woman he was with, unaware of the consequences his confessions would bring. The woman, sensing an opportunity, began to blackmail Jeremy. Each demand for money was followed by an even greater one, creating a cycle of extortion that threatened to unravel everything they had built. The situation escalated until it reached Morikawa. Furious at the jeopardizing of their carefully crafted operation, Morikawa confronted Jeremy. Despite the turmoil, they continued their illicit activities, hoping to remain undetected, but their luck was running out. One day, a seemingly innocuous incident at Morikawa's home marked the beginning of the end. A man posing as a neighbor came to his door, claiming his son's ball had landed in Morikawa's yard. As Morikawa moved to retrieve it, the man suddenly attacked him, revealing himself to be law enforcement. At the same moment, the police swarmed the property, and their search led them to the garage, the heart of Morikawa and Jeremy's operation. There, amidst the tools, paints, and printing machines, lay the evidence of their scheme: stacks of counterfeit casino chips. The police found Jeremy in the garage as well. They also found incriminating evidence, sealing their fate. The operation they had so meticulously built came crashing down, bringing their chapter of cunning and deception to a close. In prison, Morikawa and Jeremy faced a new reality. Their bail was set at an overwhelming $5 million. There, Morikawa's encounter with the Russian inmate added a complex layer to his already intricate story. The Russian, whose reputation in the criminal underworld was well established, saw potential in Morikawa's casino chip scam. He proposed a partnership, envisioning a new, perhaps more expansive operation once they were both free. While Jeremy had squandered his share of the illicit profits, Morikawa had been more cautious. Unknown to the authorities, he had stashed away a portion of the money from their operations. This foresight allowed him to hire a renowned lawyer who successfully negotiated the bail amount down to a more manageable $15,000. With his hidden funds, Morikawa secured his release. Upon release, the reality of his situation hit him hard. The legal fees were a constant drain, and despite his initial resolve to leave behind his criminal past, the financial pressure was relentless. The Russian inmate's offer now seemed like a viable escape from his mounting debts. He found himself at a crossroads, contemplating a return to the world of forgery and deceit, which he had once mastered but had also led to his downfall. Morikawa, grappling with his financial predicament, finally decided to accept the Russians' offer. Yet he imposed a crucial condition. He would not personally be involved in the actual operations at the casinos. With this agreement, a new chapter of their scheme began. Every night, the Russian visited Morikawa's garage. These late-night sessions were intense and detailed, as the Russian meticulously went through each step, ensuring grasping all the production techniques. However, Morikawa, blinded by desperation and perhaps a certain naivete, overlooked a critical fact. He was still under surveillance by the police. Unbeknownst to him, detectives had been closely monitoring his activities since his release. They observed the nightly visits of the Russian, growing increasingly suspicious of the activities occurring in Morikawa's garage. One fateful night, as Morikawa and the Russian were deeply engrossed in their illicit craft, their operation was abruptly disrupted. The police, having gathered enough evidence, conducted a raid. Caught in the act, Morikawa's brief taste of freedom ended as he was once again taken into custody. In the final twist of Morikawa's tale, his trial unfolded with his astute lawyer fighting tooth and nail for a lenient sentence. The lawyer's strategy hinged on a crucial point. The casino could not definitively prove that all the counterfeit coins were Morikawa's work. The forgeries were so precise, they blended seamlessly with the legitimate coins circulating in the casinos. This lack of concrete evidence significantly weakened the prosecution's case. The lawyer astutely argued that the only counterfeit coins that could be directly linked to Morikawa were the ones found in his garage, totaling about $30,000. This figure was a mere fraction of the estimated millions of dollars Morikawa had actually garnered from his operations. In a surprising turn of events, Morikawa received a relatively mild sentence considering the gravity of his crimes. He was ordered to serve 5 years of community service, while Jeremy, who, due to his previous criminal record, faced a lengthy prison sentence.